the entirety of feminism is a female reproductive suppression strategy. That is its key outcome, and that is the one thing that unites all of its various branches, which in many cases look otherwise very contradictory. What unites them is that ultimately they are hostile to female reproductive success.
Could
This
we
is,
just stay on that for just a second? I'm
yeah,
sorry to interrupt. So there are so many forms of feminism, and I think one of the critiques of feminism is that it never seems to agree that there's this type and that type. And you're saying that you can find one clear point of agreement on reproductive suppression.
the reason exactly, and the reason why there are so many different. So the reason why there are different branches of feminism and they don't agree is because feminism, rather than being what it purports to be, some movement to improve the welfare and happiness and freedom of women, it is a reproductive suppression strategy. It ostensibly harms women. Now, when an ideology starts spreading through society that harms women, a lot of women notice. And so what you've got is feminism just being this sort of constantly fracturing ideology. As it appeals to a lot of women and it begins to take hold, then it begins to harm a lot of women, and a whole bunch of women go, hang on a minute, I don't like this bit. And then they start their own little bit of feminism that they go, no, we're not going to do that. I don't like that. That's actually harming me more than it's harming everyone else on average. So I'm not in favor of that bit. And we get a split, and then we get another split. So I think the intersectional feminists versus the radical feminists or the TERFs is kind of the very obvious example of that, right? So you've got the intersectional feminists embracing gender ideology, which, I mean, it harms men as well. I don't want to suggest that it doesn't, but it absolutely harms women. And you've got it being pushed by the intersectional feminists. You've got it being pushed in all of the institutions that are dominated by women. You've got women showing overwhelmingly larger support for gender ideology compared to men in large-scale demographic surveys, in spite of what certain feminists will tell you, that gender ideology is being pushed by perverted men. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are perverted men with autogynephilia who fucking can't believe their luck. All of a sudden they become society's, most sacred individuals. Like, that wasn't on the bingo card. These guys don't have the social capital and the social wherewithal to be pushing an ideology like this, right? They are just the unbelievable beneficiaries of the most mental thing we've all seen in a while, right? But it's being pushed by women. You cannot get around that fact. That the one time that men had an opportunity to demonstrate how they feel about it was the whole Bud Light scandal, right? Feminists told men to stay in their lane. Well, that was in their lane, and men made very clear what their response was. But, Dylan Mulvaney, wasn't he he did something, well, I'll probably say the wrong athletic brand name, so I won't say one, but he did some spread for some big athletic brand. And there was a few women that jumped up and down, but that athletic brand sales did not tank the way Bud Light sales tanked, right? Like, it was not equivalent. Men on the whole just went, no, and women just went, no, yes, no, we don't know. And so you've got this absolutely being pushed by women because it harms women and children. Specifically, it harms, female reproductive success in a big way. And so then you've got a whole bunch of women going, actually, hang on a minute, this is, look, no, we're not on board with this. So now you've got this separate group of feminists who are just as on board with other things that do harm women, or at least harm women's reproductive success. Those two things are kind of the same, but they're not always the same. They're on board with many other things that suppress reproductive success, but not this particular one, because this one is harming them too much. That's why feminism keeps fracturing, because it's just a war of women. And so, women cannot declare a war on women and not expect large groups of other women to occasionally go, hang on a minute, we're going to fight back on that. And so the different sort of waves of feminism are all about, what is going to be most sort of hostile to female reproductive success in the here and now. So as the political environment changes and the social environment changes, feminism comes up with new ways to be hostile to women's reproductive success. And so this is where we see the beginnings of the men are bad movement. So
To go even deeper on these ideas, you can watch my full episode using the link in the description or the box on the screen.